Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder why things sometimes feel like they're moving too fast or too slow? Or why you feel so connected to your own actions? Well, this new study has some fascinating clues about how our sense of time and our feeling of control are linked. Imagine you are playing a video game and your movements on the controller perfectly match what you see on the screen. Now, imagine there is a delay or the character on screen isn't quite acting like you expect. This new research dives deep into how these mismatches affect how we perceive time and our sense of agency. That feeling of being in charge of our own actions. The scientists wanted to know if our sense of time and our sense of controlling our bodies are tied together, and if changing how connected our senses are affects both. Think about it this way. When you reach out to grab a cup, your brain sends a signal to your hand, and it also predicts what you are going to see and feel. This prediction is key. This study explored what happens when this prediction doesn't quite match reality. So, how did they test this? They used virtual reality. Participants moved their hands, and at the same time they watched the virtual hand on screen, either moving exactly with them, with a delay, or even performing a pre-recorded movement of someone else. They then had to judge how long certain things lasted and how much they felt in control of the virtual hand. Here is where it gets really interesting. When the virtual hand moved perfectly in sync with the participant's own hand, meaning there was good sensorimotor coupling, people perceived time as passing a bit slower. It felt like things lasted longer, but when there was a delay, or when the virtual hand showed someone else's movements, the opposite happened. Time felt like it sped up, or things felt shorter. This suggests that when our senses match up perfectly with our actions, it changes how we experience time. And it wasn't just about time. The sense of agency, that feeling of I am the one doing this, was also affected. When the coupling was good, people felt more in control of the virtual hand. When it was bad, that feeling of control decreased. This led the researchers to believe that our sense of time and our sense of agency might share a common foundation, both influenced by how well our actions and our sensory feedback align. They tested this further. They found similar effects whether people saw their own virtual hand first-person perspective or an avatar's virtual hand third-person perspective. It didn't even matter if the virtual hand looked like a normal hand or just a collection of spheres, and it also didn't matter if they were focused on their hand or something else in the virtual world. This suggests that the brain has a general system for predicting what will happen when we act. And this system works similarly whether it is our own body or someone else's actions we're observing. This is a big idea. It means that the way our brain predicts outcomes of actions isn't just about our specific body. It seems to be a more general predictive process that can apply to a wider range of situations. This helps us understand not just our own actions, but also how we interact with others in the world around us. So, in summary, when your actions and what you see and feel line up perfectly, time seems to slow down a bit and you feel more in control. When there is a mismatch, time feels like it speeds up and your sense of control fades. This is happening because your brain is constantly making predictions, and when those predictions are met, it influences both your perception of time and your sense of agency. Now, like all good science, this study has some limitations. For example, they mainly looked at time perception for durations longer than a second, and our experience of time can be different for shorter intervals. Also, they noted that the exact movements of the participants' hands weren't perfectly controlled, which could have played a small role. And of course, the subjective nature of reporting feelings like agency and body ownership can always be a bit tricky, as participants might unconsciously try to meet the experimenter's expectations. What does this all mean for us? It tells us that our subjective experience of time isn't just a passive reflection of clocks. It is actively constructed by our brains, influenced by our actions, and the sensory feedback we receive. When our world feels predictable and our actions have expected consequences, time might feel a little more drawn out, and we feel more like the authors of our experiences. This could have implications for how we understand things like flow states, where time seems to disappear, or even conditions where people have a distorted sense of agency. It's a reminder that our perception is a dynamic predictive process. I find this research really exciting because it highlights how interconnected our inner worlds are. The feeling of controlling our bodies and how we experience the passage of time are not separate phenomena but are deeply intertwined, built on an ongoing dance between action and prediction. It makes me wonder about how much of our reality is actually generated by our expectations. What do you think? Have you ever felt time slow down or speed up in a way that felt connected to what you were doing? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the mind, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more explorations into the science of our minds. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.